The government underlines its commitment to support household needs, and that help must remain reasonable and sustainable. That is, as the study reveals, 1/3 of respondents feel they cannot afford essential items. Now, for more analysis on our top story, I'm now joined by Dr Mathew Mathews. He's head of the IPS Social Lab at the NUS Institute of Policy Studies. Dr Mathews, welcome to the program. So what is deemed to be essential can vary across social contexts. How do you classify what's essential, and how fine is the line between needs and wants?
Well, to start off with, we have to ask the question, essential for what? Is it for survival? Then it probably will be the bare basics, adequate calories, diet, water, shelter. But in the study that we did, the household needs study, we qualified that we are looking for essential items for a normal life in Singapore. But this is quite contextual. There might be things which are important to have while you're in Singapore, which may not be important in other parts of the world. So, for instance, air conditioning for many is essential here for normal life. But if you're in a very cold country, that probably will not be that important. And there might be things which are essential, say, if you've got young children, such as childcare, which, if you don't have children, it may not be important to you. And essential items can vary quite a bit based on your income level. Someone, if from a high income level, air conditioning might be something that you see is essential, can't live without it. But if you come from a more modest background, it may not be as important. You may have adjusted to dealing with no air conditioning. So really, to the question, how fine is this line between needs and wants? It's a fine line. Can you live without something, such as a holiday, for instance? Certainly, quite disappointing. But if you compare it with something like getting healthcare, if you've got a medical condition, then you seriously want to get help as soon as possible. Yes. So quite difficult to figure exactly what needs and wants are. But we try to ask the national population this study, and you get an idea from the majority what they deem as essential.
And Dr. Mathews, how differently do these needs and wants fare across the different income levels and age groups?
As I mentioned, it really depends on the income level. So as the example I gave you, when it comes to air conditioning, for instance, if you are fairly well off, air conditioning is very, very important. But if somebody who is not from that background, it may not be too important.
Okay, and the survey also showed that healthcare was highly ranked as a government responsibility, transport as well, while the community should look after child-related items. What's behind such distinct grouping of responsibilities? How do you explain this?
I think people are considering which parties are actually effective to handle these issues. So healthcare, people see this as a big task. It's something that requires lots of effort, and you need a government to handle that. When you look at child-related items, some things like, for instance, providing adequate shoes or stationery for kids, people have seen community get together and try to take care of those issues. We've seen charities do that, and they've done a very important role in Singapore. So people then, Singaporeans then see, well, these needs can be handled by the community.
And it's interesting to also note that less than 1/3 of those surveyed say they don't believe relatives and friends should provide essential items. Why so? Are they not considered a part of the community?
Well, in our study, the community was specified as organizations like self-help groups or religious institutions, so more formalized, structured compared to family and friends. But family and friends are certainly important. You think about the very, very helpful role, and one essential item was has got to do with people's social needs, and you can get a service to take care of people's befriending needs. But really, that's what family and friends do very well at.
And another thing that I want to pick up on is that most of the respondents agree that poverty is due to personal actions. What does this tell us about Singaporeans' attitude towards poverty and the kind of support that should be given to lower income households?
No, Singaporeans in general don't look at very big structural kinds of reasons for poverty. They see this as something that's based on individual choices or things that happen to individuals. So that's where they focus their attention at. It's also, I guess, something that people have a feeling that if it's something that you make certain kind of choices and that affects your level of income, then you can also make those right choices and then perhaps be able to get out of that rut where you are at. So in many ways, I think what you have is a hopeful story in Singapore where people do believe that with effort, one is able to get out from poverty. But I think we have to make sure we all understand that it would take all of us to help people when they are in that spade of poverty to be able to get up. Sometimes the individual himself trying to do that would find a lot of obstacles. But I think when we partner together, that makes it a lot more easier.
Do you think, Dr. Mathews, that the results suggest that Singapore is moving away from self-reliance towards providing more welfare?
In fact, I think the study actually shows that Singaporeans are quite entrenched in this logic of self-reliance, especially when they know that the tab has to finally be picked up by taxpayers. So Singaporeans generally believe that you need to do the utmost to take care of your own needs. But from one study we can see is that people are not anti-welfare. They want to make sure that the low income are properly taken care of. And when the essential items are things that they believe should be taken care of by government, for instance, they expect the government to take care of that. However, at the same time, they don't want these kind of schemes to end up making people become less reliant, less self-reliant, and very much dependent on others.
And Minister Masagos earlier today highlighted the importance of 3 S's in his speech. He said stability, self-reliance, and social mobility. What do you think are some examples of targeted interventions to support low-income groups in getting essential items while achieving these 3 S's?
I think for targeted interventions, you can think of examples like ComCare, which social service officers administer, and these provide a range of support for low-income households, especially when their income makes it very difficult for them to meet those basic needs. But generally, they are temporary because there's a lot of help also to make sure that the individual is able to find or have the requisite skills or find a job to be able to sustain them. So in that sense, you continue to help. You watch the person's need at that particular time, but you also make sure that there are ways for them to be self-reliant in the longer term. Then also you can think about many of the packages that have been rolled out to help low-income families with young children, to help them to gain access to childcare, infant care, student care, various kinds of educational type of resources. And then these are done at very, very low rates. And ultimately, of course, what happens is that as children have a good head start with good education, pre-primary lessons, there's a good chance that they will do better and ultimately be able to be successful. And then, of course, essentially be able to pull their whole family out from a poverty trap.
Dr. Mathews, thank you so much for speaking with us. That was Dr. Mathew Mathews, head of the IPS Social Lab at the Institute of Policy Studies at NUS.